What's going on, creators? Yeah, I just want to get on here and bring everybody back to now. Appreciate y'all being here and vibing with me for a bit. Yeah, today I'd like to talk a little bit about where you're putting your attention and really looking at that more as like feeding either a problem or something that you enjoy. And if it is becoming a problem, where you're putting so much attention, with everything that's going on, it's easy to start falling into these loops of just like worst case scenarios starting to manifest. Oh, my fears are being manifested and it's confirmed in my 3D world. I see it on the news. I see it on my screen. I see it in my media. I see it everywhere. Starting to look at that more as like a symptom, like, okay, well, this is everywhere, and then looking within and seeing how maybe your attention towards this problem has now snowballed the problem into a lot bigger pendulum, I guess, and looking at it as a way to start going, oh, okay, well, if my attention and energy has started to feed this in my own kind of feedback loop, then I can put the power back on myself and just start to do something different, and so if like social media, as you're on Twitter or something like that, and it's just like, man, I feel like I'm just one thing after another with these, what's wrong with these people, and then, you get all this shit just hitting your radar. Just get off of that. There's plenty of other things to do on the internet, just stop putting your attention and feeding it. That's like one of the biggest things to start breaking away from, because it's like you start getting in these echo chambers and it's just like, oh, well, I felt this specific way, and then all of a sudden there's reinforced. Start looking at all these things, like especially on the internet, as being in the attention business. And once you look at it in that way, it's not like an arbiter of truth or like reality or any of that kind of shit. It's just, oh, this is just trying to get my attention by any means necessary to hold my gaze on their platform. So once you start to look at that as being, oh, that's what they're doing, it kind of takes away a little bit of the illusion, and really becoming conscious of an illusion is the first way to really start to step out of that illusion, and so with the internet, it's very easy to start falling into illusions, especially when you're interested in a specific rabbit hole. It's like you can get in all these, like, maybe I don't even, there's so many of these like rabbit holes on YouTube you can start getting into, from the Kennedy to 9/11 to COVID, any of this shit. It's like you start going so deep in this stuff and end up on the other side where it's like you don't even recognize what planet you're on anymore. But like taking a big step back, breathing, connecting with the present moment ultimately, and really kind of starting to get out of that fear mentality, that reactivity, and a lot of times when you start searching for these like worst case scenarios, you'll find them. It's like people are experiencing all sorts of different things at the moment. Really everybody's experiencing things differently by day to day. When you start to become more present and still and just what's happening here and now, a lot of the noise from the world and the outside shit starts to become quieter and quieter until you start to almost feel like you're in nature on some level, where it's just like, I don't know how to describe it. It's like, sometimes when you go camping, you just go out in like a park or something, you start to connect with like the squirrels and the breeze and the sky and the cloud. You start feeling some of that connectivity that's always there. But then you go back into like your town or city or whatever, and it's like, oh, back into civilization, into society. But that society itself is an illusion like that. It's like you never stop being in nature. You're always in that. The only thing that's different is now you have all these stories of what you're telling yourself is happening. It's like, oh, I see this person on the street. I see, this institution. I see this media. And, then you start to tell yourself all these stories about what you perceive to be actually happening. But you never stop being in nature. You never, you've pushed it away, and in its place, replaced it with a story that you've created. But ultimately, once you start catching those illusions, those stories that you're telling yourself of like, oh, well, I live in a state, I live in a country, I live in this. It's like you live in a spot. It's like you have access to food and water. One of the things I've learned from like raising chickens, now I got 7 chickens, 2 ducks, and a turkey. A lot of illusions, when it comes to like nature, and like how majestic animals can be. It's just like, have you been around a bunch of animals? I mean, have you really experienced that consciousness? It's just like, shit can be pretty tough. It's like I was feeding the chickens the other day, and I ended up getting rid of the rooster because it was just cock-a-doodling. I live in town, and so in the town I live in, you can have chickens. If they become obnoxiously loud and annoying, that's when it becomes an issue. But like and I was feeding the chickens, and I go out of the coop because we got it fenced off with like chain link fence, and like have an area for them to kind of, I don't know, gather bugs and whatnot, and then like the actual chicken coop to keep them safe from raccoons and whatnot. I hear this loud like screaming and flocking and just flapping. And so I go out there to check it out, and the rooster's got this duck pinned down to the ground, and he was literally just biting the back of its neck to the point where it was ripping feathers out. And so I had to like get involved and like kick the rooster off the duck. But it's just, you see a lot of that with just when you're actually out in nature. It's like, I just like this funny story. Like I worked with this lady, she was out with her kids, and like, I can't remember if it was like a pond or a lake, or it doesn't really matter, but there's like a swan, out there. And like they're like, oh, look how cute that swan is. It's so beautiful and majestic. And like this family of geese start going by the swan, and it's just like a geese and then like a bunch of babies behind it, like kind of trailing. And then the swan just comes up and starts snapping the necks of all the little babies and drowning them and shit. And they're like watching from the shore, like, what the fuck, and there's nothing they could do about it because it was like way out in the middle of the water. and it's just like, another example, but yeah, I just wanted to get on here real quick. I just had a little bit of time. I got a bunch of like chores and random shit to do around the house. I want to like weed whack my yard, and I just got this checklist that keeps growing and growing, and it's just like the never-ending checklist. But like, I just wanted to get on here and just kind of just remind myself and you guys to just stop getting these feedback loops, these echo chambers, these inversions of reality that are just attention seeking entities. So it's like stop looking at it as like a mirror of reality or truth, and see it for what it is, just an attention seeking business model that just needs you to it ultimately just needs your attention to function in a way that they can sell it to advertisers and make money, and like knowing that, just like, would you look at like in the United States, like Jerry Springer or some of these like these ridiculous shows, they're just like what I'm talking about. They're just so outrageous. They just get your attention, but that doesn't mean that's how reality is. It's maybe some parts of town are like that, but it doesn't mean that's like everybody's experience. And like use it as like an indicator, if it makes you start feeling like shit, starts poisoning kind of your state of being. It's like, start looking at like your neighbors as being enemies because it's like some propaganda that you're seeing on the news, and realize that all of these news is, it's like, it's all fucking fairy tales and fantasy. I see in another round of the same propaganda that went on a year ago. And it's like there's so many tricks they have in their bag, and it's amazing to me. People keep continuously falling for it. The fear tactics and the come to us as the arbiter of your reality type vibe. And it's not, maybe that's just how I'm interpreting it, but there's so many times where it's just like, well, trust us, we're from the government. Or trust us, we're somebody in a fancy suit that stares into the camera right into your eyes. You can trust me. It's just like, don't trust anything out here. It's like, ultimately go within and trust God, and trust that inner guidance system that you've been given, to when you're getting the noise from the outside world, as Neville Goddard would describe it as the world of Caesar. It's like the Bible describes it just as the world. It's just, this narrative, this nonstop narrative story, that's an inversion of what is actually real. But like, stop just getting triggered by it and like railing against. I mean, it wants you to do that. It wants you to rail against it. So you're feeding it your energy. You're feeding it your attention. You just start starving the shit. Just turn it off. Turn it off and don't go back to it. Or if you do, like there was like a time where it's like, recently, like probably, I don't know, 8 months or so. I don't keep track of time like that, but like, I just didn't watch any news at all, because it's just, it's not even worth the energy to care, because it's like, why would I care what liars are fucking scheming about? But then, what ended up happening was then I started getting it on my radar of like, well, if you're actively avoiding it, you're almost making it real. And that was the last thing I wanted to do. So I started dipping back into it again, just to take away that power of like, oh, it's something to avoid. It's scary. It has the power to influence my consciousness. So I started to inundate myself with it again. And, was able to just look at it, without being so triggered. But, it's one of those things where it's like, you can start seeing through it. You see the same storyline propaganda bullshit, and it doesn't matter what what it is. It's like, whoa, you got CNN over here, and you got Fox over here. It's like they're both doing the same. They're pandering to an audience. It's and with it, they're both doing the same shit. They're both leading you down the same kind of end. When the reality is, none of this is even. It's all a fucking fairy tale. It's all a story. It's like if you unplug from the screens, all of these screens. You're staring at a screen now. You're maybe looking at a TV screen. Turn it off for a month and just walk around in your town or in your city and your countryside, any of these type of shit, and see how far removed you are from any of these problems. It's like none of these problems are actually affecting the majority of people, at least where I'm at. Maybe where you're at, if you're in a big city where you got a bunch of this insanity. But so much of that is just stop complying with it. Is once you stop complying with it, you see how a powerless fucking. You start seeing how the story you were telling yourself is what was actually the problem. It's like, so many times it's just like, oh, you got, the whatever authority is saying this, so they're saying that. It's like, it depends on you. It's like you are giving your authority to them. So you just stop doing that shit and just start realizing, so much, of what we're seeing is an attention-seeking business model, that it's 100% dependent on your attention. So it's like, again, don't give the power away to the propagandists. Give it back to yourself for even trying, for putting your valuable attention on something and feeding it and creating this bigger story in yourself. It's all psychological. This thing is a psychological thing. It's not physical. And so, once you unplug from the stories and the propaganda and all these suggestions, these offers, look at it as offers. It's like you do not have to accept any of this shit. You can start saying no in a big way, just by like removing your attention from it is the most powerful thing you can do. And then start putting your attention wherever God directs you to put your attention. I'm not gonna tell you what to do, but like ultimately just start looking at things a little bit differently, and hopefully that helps your state of consciousness, your state of being, evolve into higher and higher, states of joy, at least, or peace. Start looking at any of these things that are taking away your peace, or that you start attacking in your mind, which is also taking away your peace, and go, this isn't, I fell for a business model that just is wanting me to do this. It's wanting me to be triggered, and then so I'm watching it. So I'm giving it attention. So I'm putting it up on a pedestal. when the most valuable thing you can do is like, well, it's causing me to start attacking it because I disagree with the upside down nature of it. Well, instead of doing that, you just go, oh, okay, well, it's trying to get my attention. It's worked because now it's got my attention, and now I'm fighting with it. And as I'm fighting with it, there's some energetic exchange metaphysically happening that is emboldening it, strengthening it, making it a bigger pendulum. I'm just going to just remove my attention from it and treat it as the shadow that it is, and I'm going to move my attention towards what I desire. What I ideally like to see is people coming together, spiritually awakening to who they actually are, vibing high in love and joy, and not living in a total state of fear and suffering. Because that's ultimately, there's only really two states. I mean, there's many varieties in those two, but if you're in the illusion of separation, in a state of fear, there's suffering and torment attached to that, and it's always in the present moment. So you're spending the present moment, which is the only time that's real, in a continuous state of suffering and torment, when the alternative is listening to the voice for peace within you, and instead of being in a state of torment and suffering, spending the present moment in a state of maybe just peace, where it's not fighting, attacking things, or joy, or high vibe kind of things, and not to sit there and judge one or the other, because a lot of times if you're like, I was into that David Hawkins book, The Art of Surrender, or Letting Go, The Art of Surrendering, kind of I don't know, I recommend, they had it as an audiobook on YouTube for a while, but really letting the emotions be there, and kind of just letting them be and do what they do, and then kind of just, it's like almost like the energy just dissipates naturally. Like really strong pain, like painful emotions, it's like or you're like crying, you're really sad, that, and intense joy is very physically very similar, so it's like, it's like a lot of times it's how you're looking at it, and and the story you're telling yourself, which is actually the issue. But with that being said, I just wanted to bring that to you guys' attention, especially with what's going on, to take your attention and move it towards your something that you actually want to see in the world, and you be the change ultimately. And so with that being said, I think I'm gonna bounce. So thanks for listening, everybody, and have a good rest of your now and God bless.